You check your phone and it's 3:33 in the morning again, the same time you saw yesterday and the day before that. Or you're walking down the street thinking about an old friend and suddenly their name appears on a billboard right in front of you. Or maybe you've been seeing butterflies everywhere, in your morning walk, on a stranger's shirt, in a dream last night, and something inside whispers, this means something. But then logic takes over. Pure chance, you tell yourself, your mind finding patterns that don't exist, statistical probability, here's what they never told you. What you're calling coincidence isn't coincidence at all. It's not randomness. It's not pattern recognition gone wild. It's synchronicity, and synchronicity is reality speaking directly to you in a symbolic language most people have completely forgotten how to translate. This isn't mysticism for the sake of mysticism. This is about understanding a fundamental architecture of existence itself, something Carl Jung dedicated his life to decoding, something quantum science is now validating with experimental data. Something that will revolutionize everything about how you navigate your life once you grasp what's actually happening. What most people don't recognize is this. You exist inside a living field of consciousness right now. Not a dead mechanical universe, a field that's aware, responsive, interactive, a field that doesn't passively observe your inner world. It actively mirrors it back to you with stunning precision. Every moment of synchronicity you've encountered, that wasn't the cosmos winking at you for fun. That was communication. Real-time, energetic communication, revealing the exact vibrational signature you're transmitting into reality. The recurring numbers, the impossible meetings, the dreams that materialized days later, the lyrics that answered your unspoken question. None of this is accidental. These are coordinates in an ongoing dialogue between you and existence that's been unfolding since the day you were born. Most people walk through life completely unconscious of this conversation. They witness the signs, dismiss them, and move on. They encounter the most sophisticated guidance technology in the universe and label it weird timing. Nothing more, but here's where everything shifts. Once you decode this symbolic language, once you recognize the signals constantly emanating from your lived experience, you stop being someone life happens to. You become someone who shapes life consciously, not through wishful thinking or manifestation clichés, but because the research, the replicated scientific research, reveals something that changes the entire game. Your awareness isn't locked inside your brain, it's not local to your body. It exists as an electromagnetic field, a non-local field of consciousness extending far beyond your physical form, interfacing continuously with what we experience as reality. Synchronicity is the feedback mechanism, its existence demonstrating in real time what energetic frequency you're embodying and what corresponding experiences you're magnetizing into your world. So, let me ask you something. What if the guidance system you've been searching for has been operating flawlessly this whole time? What if every answer you've ever needed has been surfacing consistently, and you simply haven't learned how to read the language? I'm about to decode exactly how this mechanism operates. And when we're done here, your relationship with reality will never be the same. Let's go deeper into this. When most people begin recognizing synchronicity, they make a critical error. They assume it's about desire fulfillment. They think, oh, I'm finally vibrating correctly because I'm seeing all these signs about my dreams. Then confusion sets in because they keep seeing 555 everywhere. They get excited about a potential breakthrough. They interpret the universe as giving them a green light. Then reality doesn't deliver, the job vanishes, the relationship dissolves, the opportunity evaporates, and their conclusion becomes synchronicity is just wishful delusion. But here's the truth no one wants to confront. Synchronicity isn't a validation machine. It's not the universe endorsing your desires. It's not a cosmic approval stamp confirming you're on the right track. It's a reflection, pure unfiltered reflection, and reflections reveal what you're actually emanating, not what you hope you're emanating. Let me show you what Carl Jung really uncovered because this reframes everything. Jung wasn't exploring synchronicity as some party trick for mystics. He was investigating it as a depth psychologist, attempting to understand how the unconscious psyche communicates with us. What he discovered was revolutionary. His patients consistently experienced meaningful external events during critical moments of internal transformation, specifically when they were approaching psychological breakthroughs, when unconscious material was ready to surface into awareness. Physical reality would produce corresponding symbolic experiences. One of his patients dreamed of a golden scarab, an ancient symbol of transformation and rebirth. The following day, during their session, an actual scarab beetle, virtually impossible to find in Switzerland, struck the therapy room window. Jung caught it and presented it to her. That single moment shattered her intellectual defenses. It cracked open a deeper recognition she'd been resisting for years. The synchronicity wasn't arbitrary. It was surgically precise. It manifested at the exact instant her consciousness was prepared to evolve, delivering the precise symbol her psyche required to complete that evolutionary leap. Jung named these meaningful coincidences. But notice the operative word meaningful, not random, not fortunate, meaningful. The significance was calibrated to her internal condition. The timing synchronized with her transformation. The symbol matched her unconscious architecture. This is where people fundamentally misunderstand synchronicity. They believe it's about receiving what they want, when it's actually about revealing what's alive inside them. External reality functions as a constant mirror of your internal frequency. When you notice 111 and feel a surge of possibility, that's not the universe making promises. That's your nervous system detecting coherence. Your consciousness briefly aligned with a higher vibrational state, and reality confirmed the alignment. When you think of someone moments before they contact you, that's not supernatural. That's electromagnetic fields intersecting in resonance. Jacobo Grinberg's groundbreaking neuronal field research demonstrated this conclusively. Two individuals in deep energetic rapport literally generate a unified field. Their neural patterns synchronize. Their consciousness temporarily merges. When that unified field achieves sufficient coherence, external events reorganize, communications manifest, reality becomes fluid. But, and this is what creates discomfort, synchronicity equally reflects your blocks, your fears, your fragmentation. You continuously encounter the same destructive relational patterns. That's not misfortune. That's a synchronistic reflection revealing an unintegrated frequency pattern you're still broadcasting. You perpetually miss opportunities by moments. That's not cruelty. That's information. You're oscillating out of phase. Your timing fails because your internal coherence is disrupted. Reality is always transmitting. Most people only acknowledge transmissions that confirm their preferred story. Authentic synchronicity work isn't about collecting signs that validate your fantasies. It's about developing radical honesty with what the mirror actually reveals. And here's where hope emerges. When you stop resisting what's reflected, when you release the demand that reality conform to your illusions, a profound shift occurs. You begin receiving true guidance, not comforting messages, but necessary ones. Synchronicities intensify in clarity, frequency, and specificity because you've stopped jamming the signal with denial. You've been waiting for existence to communicate in terms you already understand. The reality is it's been transmitting constantly. You needed to learn the grammar system. So consider this. Which synchronicities have you been rejecting because they contradicted your preferred narrative? Which recurring patterns have you labeled as bad luck because those aren't punishments? They're invitations. Invitations to shift your frequency, to integrate what remains unhealed, to align with actual truth rather than desired truth. When you finally stop fighting the reflection, reality begins collaborating with you in ways that will fundamentally alter your understanding of what's possible. Ready to go deeper? Let's examine what quantum physics has now confirmed. This is where it becomes undeniable. For decades, synchronicity was dismissed by institutional science as pseudoscience, coincidence, apenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in randomness. And I understand the skepticism. Jung's framework sounded esoteric. It resisted laboratory measurement. It appeared to violate causality itself. Then quantum physics arrived and detonated every assumption. Because what physicists discovered at the quantum scale completely dismantles our conventional model of reality. Let me walk you through this, because once you see it, there's no one seeing it. Classical physics described a mechanical universe, solid, separate, deterministic. Cause always preceded effect. Objects existed independently of observation. Consciousness was merely neurochemical activity irrelevant to external phenomena. Quantum mechanics said otherwise. When scientists examined subatomic particles, they encountered something that shattered the paradigm. These particles don't exist in definite states prior to observation. Before measurement, they exist as probability waves, infinite potential configurations existing simultaneously in superposition. Only when a conscious observer measures does the wave function collapse into a singular definite particle state. This phenomenon is called the observer effect, and it's not theoretical speculation. It's been validated through thousands of replicated experiments. The double-slit experiment alone has been performed so extensively it's now established fact. Your observation, your conscious attention literally determines physical outcomes. Not metaphorically, literally. Now connect this to synchronicity. If consciousness collapses probability waves, if awareness actively participates in manifesting what becomes actual, then reality isn't a pre-existing stage you navigate. It's a responsive interactive field you're continuously co-creating through observation. And if that's accurate, then meaningful coincidences aren't anomalies in the system. They're fundamental features of how the system operates. Michael Talbot explored this brilliantly in the holographic universe. He proposed that reality functions holographically, where each fragment contains information about the totality, where separation is perceptual illusion, where everything interconnects within a unified conscious field. In a holographic model, synchronicity isn't strange. It's inevitable, because if you and I and that moment and this experience are all expressions of one interconnected field, then obviously your internal state influences external manifestations. Obviously, your emotional frequency attracts resonant experiences. Obviously, existence mirrors your consciousness continuously. It's not mysticism, it's mechanics. But here's what profoundly shifted my understanding. Your consciousness isn't even confined to neural tissue. For generations, we've been taught that cognition occurs in the brain, that consciousness equals neurological processing, that awareness is electrochemical reactions contained within your skull. Research by scientists like Jacobo Grinberg challenged that entire paradigm. Grinberg explored what he termed the neuronal field, the concept that consciousness isn't generated by the brain but accessed through it. The brain functions as a receiving antenna, tuning into a broader field of awareness existing beyond physicality. He conducted experiments where two subjects would enter deep meditative coherence. Then he'd flash light into one person's visual field, and simultaneously the other person's brain, in a completely separate shielded room, would display identical neurological activation patterns. No physical connection, no sensory communication, just two consciousness fields resonating in unified coherence. This is quantum entanglement in human consciousness. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance because it violated every principle of classical causality. But it's measurable, it's repeatable, and it explains synchronicity at a fundamental level. When you think of someone moments before they reach out, that's not chance. That's overlapping consciousness fields achieving momentary resonance. When you enter a space and immediately sense the emotional atmosphere, that's not intuition. That's your neuronal field reading electromagnetic information in the environment. When you dream something that manifests 3 days later, that's not fortune-telling. That's consciousness accessing information from a non-local field where linear time doesn't constrain perception. You are not isolated from the reality you observe. You're woven into its fabric. Your thoughts generate electromagnetic signatures. Your emotions broadcast specific frequencies. Your attention operates as quantum observation, collapsing potential into manifestation. This explains why affirmations often fail, why vision boards disappoint, because people attempt to manipulate reality through conscious intention while their subconscious broadcasts contradictory frequencies. Reality doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your actual energetic state. Synchronicity is reality's response mechanism. When you achieve coherence, when thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align, reality responds with synchronistic flow. Doors open effortlessly, people appear precisely when needed, opportunities materialize with perfect timing, you feel carried by invisible currents. But during dissonance, when conscious desires conflict with subconscious programming, reality mirrors that fragmentation. Delays, complications, missed connections, patterns that perpetuate regardless of conscious effort. Existence isn't punishing you, it's reflecting you with perfect accuracy, and here's the transformative recognition. This means you're not helpless, you're not victimized by circumstances, you're not subject to arbitrary fate or luck. You're a quantum observer within a responsive field. Every moment, you're collapsing probability into experience. Every thought, emotion, and belief broadcasts a signal that reality echoes back precisely. When you encounter that recurring number, when you experience impossible timing, when existence delivers exactly what occupied your thoughts, it's not showing off. It's confirming, yes, this is the mechanism, you possess this capacity, pay attention. The question isn't whether synchronicity operates. The question is whether you're prepared to accept responsibility for what you're creating. Because once you comprehend this, once you genuinely recognize that you're not separate from the field, that your consciousness actively shapes reality, you cannot return to unconsciousness. You cannot maintain victim narratives. You cannot blame circumstances. You cannot wait for external rescue. You must become the frequency you wish to experience, and that's where genuine transformation initiates. Let's explore why most people never reach this point. If synchronicity functions as a real feedback system, if consciousness shapes reality, if we're all interfaced with this responsive quantum field, why doesn't everyone experience it? Why do some people live in perpetual synchronistic flow while others perceive only randomness and struggle? Here's the uncomfortable recognition. Most people broadcast noise instead of signal. Let me clarify. Imagine tuning a radio to a specific frequency. If the dial is even fractionally misaligned, you receive static interference, fragmented transmissions distorted by competing signals. You might catch occasional words, brief musical phrases, but the message remains garbled. That describes most people's electromagnetic field. Chaotic, incoherent, simultaneously broadcasting dozens of conflicting frequencies. Their conscious mind declares, "I want prosperity." But their subconscious runs programming that says, "Wealth is difficult, I'm undeserving, people like me don't receive fortunate breaks." Their heart yearns for love, but their nervous system remains locked in survival mode, scanning for danger, constructing barriers, anticipating betrayal. They claim they want transformation, but their physiology is addicted to familiar emotional patterns of stress, resentment, victimhood. These emotions have crystallized into identity and reality. The field doesn't judge, it doesn't evaluate your desires, it responds to your actual frequency. So when your frequency is chaotic, what manifests? Chaos, delays, contradictory signals, synchronicities that begin promisingly, then dissolve into confusion. You notice 11-11 and feel hopeful. 2 days pass, nothing shifts, and you dismiss it as meaningless. You meet someone who feels significant, but complications arise and you attribute it to poor timing. Existence isn't withholding. You're simply not maintaining a clear frequency long enough for the field to lock onto and deliver corresponding manifestations. This is what people resist hearing because it requires ceasing to blame external circumstances and examining internal states. That's terrifying because most people have constructed entire identities around their wounds, limitations, and scarcity stories. I'm unlucky. Nothing works out for me. I'm not the type who receives opportunities. These aren't merely thoughts. They're broadcast frequencies. Each repetition tunes your receiver to channels of scarcity, struggle, and separation. Reality receives that transmission and responds, understood. Here's additional evidence confirming your belief. More closed doors, more disappointments, more validation that life is difficult and synchronicity is fantasy. But here's where hope becomes real. Listen carefully. You're not damaged, you're not failing, you're not cursed or blocked or unfortunate. You're misuned, and tuning in is a learnable skill, a practicable discipline, something you can cultivate. If this is resonating with you, if you're recognizing yourself in what I'm describing, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This helps others who are ready to tune in find their way here. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this. Every legitimate spiritual lineage contains some version of this teaching. Buddhism calls it present awareness, Christianity calls it faith, quantum physics calls it coherence. All point toward the same truth. You must become the frequency of your desired reality, not mentally rehearse it, not visualize it, not recite affirmations while your nervous system broadcasts terror. You must embody it, inhabit it, saturate yourself in that frequency until it's no longer an achievement you're pursuing. It becomes what you are. When you accomplish this, when your electromagnetic field achieves coherence, when thoughts, emotions, and beliefs unify into a singular, clear transmission, synchronicities don't merely increase, they become undeniable. You stop questioning whether certain people were meant to appear. They manifest in ways so specific, so perfectly timed, dismissal becomes impossible. You stop wondering about your path. It unfolds before you with crystalline clarity, as though existence is laying luminous markers. You stop doubting your intuition because external feedback becomes so immediate and precise that trusting the signal becomes natural. This is what Joe Dispenza means when he teaches that your personality creates your personal reality. Your personality, the habitual thought patterns, emotional states, and behavioral loops you repeat daily. That's your broadcast frequency. Your reality reflects that frequency with precision. Different reality requires different frequency, which means becoming a genuinely different person, not performing a false persona, not adopting a manifestation mask while secretly believing you're insufficient. An authentically transformed operating system, new thought architecture, new emotional baseline, new belief structures, a nervous system that experiences safety and abundance, love and expansive possibility. And here's what's beautiful. You don't need complete perfection. You don't need flawless execution. You don't need to eliminate every limiting belief before reality responds. You simply need to become coherent enough that signal strength exceeds noise. That's the entire mechanism. Reality is so intelligent, so responsive, so eager to collaborate with clear frequency that the instant you shift, even marginally, it meets you there. That's what synchronicity demonstrates. Every recurring number, every meaningful coincidence, every moment of perfect timing, its existence communicating, I'm present, I'm receiving. Continue. Most people abandon the practice prematurely. They attempted for a week, observed no dramatic results, and quit. But those who achieve sustained synchronistic flow didn't receive luck. They achieved coherence. They stopped seeking external validation and began cultivating internal alignment. They stopped treating synchronicity like a transactional machine and recognized it as an ongoing conversation, and existence responded because it always does. So examine this honestly. What frequency are you broadcasting right now? Is it the frequency of the reality you claim to desire? Because if dissonance exists, if a gap separates who you are from who you wish to become, that gap is where your synchronicities disappear into interference. But close that gap, embody that frequency, and everything transforms. Music, let me show you how. Let's make this practical because understanding theory without application is useless. I'm going to guide you through precisely how to decode your personal synchronicity and begin consciously collaborating with the field. First, recognize that synchronicity communicates through symbols, not language, not linear logic symbols, and these symbols are uniquely yours. When you encounter a hawk, it might signify liberation. For me, it might represent focused attention. Reality doesn't use a universal codebook. It uses your subconscious mind's personal symbolic language. This is why generic angel number interpretations fail. Someone tells you 444 means angelic presence, but when you see 444, it might connect to a specific memory, a particular person, a unique fear or longing that only your psyche understands. So first practice, begin a synchronicity journal, not merely recording what you observe, but documenting what you are thinking, feeling, experiencing immediately before it appeared. You notice 11-11. Excellent. But what occupied your thoughts? What decision were you wrestling with? What emotional state were you inhabiting? Because synchronicity isn't random occurrence, it's direct response. The more data you gather, the clearer your personal pattern language becomes. I've maintained this practice for years, and I can confirm your synchronicities contain themes, recurring symbolic motifs, consistent imagery that surfaces during particular emotional frequencies. Once you identify these patterns, you stop requiring external interpretation. You become fluent in your own symbolic vocabulary. Take a moment and share in the comments below. What's a synchronicity you experienced that you've been dismissing or rationalizing away? Sometimes naming it, acknowledging it publicly is the first step in honoring the signal. Here's something most people don't realize about this journaling practice. The act of documenting synchronicity itself shifts your relationship with reality. You're training your consciousness to become more observant, more receptive, more attuned to the subtle language reality speaks. It's like learning a new language through immersion. At first, you catch only fragments, then words, then phrases. Eventually, you're having full conversations with existence, understanding nuances that were always there, but invisible to your untrained perception. And the patterns that emerge, they're often startling in their consistency. You might discover that every time you see a specific bird, you're wrestling with a decision about freedom versus security, or that certain number sequences consistently appear when you're on the verge of a breakthrough but doubting yourself, or that particular songs play on the radio precisely when you need to hear their specific message. These aren't accidents, they're your unique symbolic alphabet, the language your higher consciousness uses to communicate with your everyday awareness. Second practice, elevate your emotional frequency. This is non-negotiable. You can journal extensively, but if you remain trapped in fear, resentment, and scarcity consciousness, your field broadcasts static. Reality doesn't respond to cognitive content, it responds to emotional frequency. If you want synchronistic flow, you must cultivate flow emotions. Gratitude, appreciation, peace, curiosity, trust, not performed or forced. Authentically shift your nervous system into these states. How? Countless methodologies exist. Meditation practices, conscious breathing, immersion in nature, somatic movement, service to others, creative expression, whatever methodology drops you from mental activity into embodied presence. Because here's the key insight. Synchronicity doesn't exist in past or future. It exists now. When you're ruminating about yesterday or anxious about tomorrow, you're not present, you're offline. Reality is transmitting signals, but you're unavailable to receive them. But when you're here, completely present, fully alive in this moment, synchronicities become impossible to miss. You feel the impulse. Take an alternate route home. That route leads to the exact conversation you needed. You receive an intuitive prompt to check your messages. There's the opportunity you've been cultivating. You think of someone and within an hour they reach out. This isn't fortune, this is coherence. You're present. And reality is responding. Let me share something about emotional frequency that most teachers won't tell you. Your emotions aren't just feelings. They're electromagnetic broadcasts that literally shape the quantum field around you. Research in heart coherence has shown that the human heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, one that extends several feet beyond your physical form. When you're in states of appreciation, gratitude, love, compassion, your heart's electromagnetic field becomes coherent, ordered, harmonious. And this coherence doesn't just stay contained within you, it radiates outward, influencing the field around you. Other people feel this. You've experienced it yourself. You walk into a room and immediately sense someone's energy. That's not mystical perception. That's your electromagnetic field detecting their electromagnetic field. When you're broadcasting coherent high-frequency emotions, You literally become magnetic to synchronistic experiences because your field is clear, strong, and easily readable by the quantum field of reality itself. But here's what creates the real shift. Sustaining these elevated emotional states isn't about forced positivity or spiritual bypassing. It's about genuine transformation of your baseline emotional set point. Most people exist in survival emotions, stress, anxiety, frustration, because that's where their nervous system has learned to function. Those emotions feel normal, familiar, even comfortable in their discomfort. To access synchronistic flow consistently, you need to retrain your nervous system to feel safe, to feel resourced, to feel expanded as your new normal. This takes practice, repetition, consistency, but the more you inhabit these elevated states, the more your biology adapts and eventually coherence becomes your default rather than something you have to consciously create. Now, what we've explored today about synchronicity is one thread in a much larger tapestry of conscious reality creation. If you're feeling the pull to go deeper, to understand the complete architecture of how your electromagnetic field shapes everything you experience, I've created Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It takes you through the 9 master frequencies that transform you from someone seeking synchronicity to someone living as pure transmission itself, including practices for breaking free from survival static and embodying the coherence that makes reality bend toward you. You'll find it linked in the pinned comment below. Third practice, recognize relationships as mirrors because they are. Every person in your life reflects something within you. Every relational dynamic, every conflict, every repeating pattern. It's not about them. It's about the frequency you're holding. You continuously attract emotionally unavailable partners. That's not misfortune. That's a mirror revealing where you're unavailable. To yourself, you repeatedly experience betrayal. Reality is asking, where are you betraying yourself? Where are you abandoning your truth to maintain false peace? This recognition is challenging. I understand, because we want to believe it's others' fault. We want to blame external factors, but synchronicity doesn't permit evasion. It's relentlessly honest. And the gift in that, the profoundly liberating gift, is that once you stop resisting the reflection, you reclaim your power. You're not victimized by others' behavior. You're the creator of your experience. When you shift your frequency, people in your life either transform with you or naturally fall away. It's not personal, it's resonance. You've changed frequencies and they no longer match. Here's the deeper layer of this mirror principle that radically transforms how you navigate relationships. Every challenging person in your life is teaching you something essential about your own unintegrated aspects. The person who triggers your anger is showing you where you're suppressing your own power. The person who makes you feel inadequate is revealing where you're abandoning your own worth. The person who seems to withhold love is mirroring where you're withholding love from yourself. This doesn't mean staying in toxic relationships or accepting harmful behavior. It means recognizing that the external dynamic is pointing to internal work. Once you integrate the lesson, once you heal that frequency within yourself, one of two things happens. Either the relationship transforms completely because you're no longer a vibrational match for the old dynamic, or the relationship naturally completes because its teaching purpose has been fulfilled. Both outcomes are synchronistic guidance leading you toward greater wholeness. And here's something profound. The people who show up synchronistically in your life, the ones who appear at exactly the right moment with exactly the right message or opportunity, these aren't random strangers. They're matching your frequency. You called them into your reality. Through the clarity and coherence of your energetic broadcast, they're evidence that you're tuned in, that you're sending clear signals, that reality is responding with precision. Fourth practice, make decisions from alignment, not logic. This is where most people self-sabotage. They receive a synchronistic signal, a clear nudge from reality, then override it with rational analysis. But it doesn't make sense. But it's not practical. But what if I fail and they choose the safe, familiar option, the one that satisfies others' expectations, the one that maintains smallness? But synchronicity doesn't respond to logic. It responds to alignment. When you feel that pull, that seemingly irrational, undeniable pull towards something, that's not recklessness. That's your higher consciousness guiding you through the field. The more you honor these impulses, the stronger the signal becomes. Reality learns to trust you. It begins transmitting bigger, clearer, more frequent synchronicities, but ignore them, override them with logic, the signal weakens, synchronicities diminish, not because existence is punishing you, but because you're teaching it. You're not ready to receive guidance. Let me tell you about the intelligence of aligned action versus logical action. Logic operates from known information, past experiences, societal conditioning, fear, based risk assessment. Logic says, stay where it's safe, where outcomes are predictable, where you won't face uncertainty, but aligned action operates from a completely different intelligence. It operates from your connection to the quantum field itself, which has access to information beyond your conscious awareness. When you feel that pull towards something that doesn't make logical sense, you're receiving information from the field about probabilities and potentials that your rational mind cannot calculate. Your higher consciousness, which exists beyond linear time, can perceive trajectories and outcomes that your everyday awareness cannot see. That pull is guidance based on a larger view of reality than your logic can access. I've watched countless people ignore synchronistic nudges because they couldn't rationally justify them, only to discover months or years later that the path they chose logically led to stagnation, while the path that called to them would have led to exactly what they needed. And I've watched others follow seemingly irrational impulses, trust synchronistic guidance that made no logical sense, and witness their lives transform in ways they could never have planned or predicted. The key is learning to distinguish between aligned impulse and fear-based reaction. Aligned impulse feels expansive, even if it's scary. It creates a sense of rightness in your body, a quiet knowing beneath the surface anxiety. Fear-based reaction feels contracting, desperate, driven by avoidance rather than attraction. Learning this discernment is part of developing synchronistic fluency, and the more you practice, the clearer the distinction becomes. Fifth, practice, release attachment to outcomes. This paradox breaks most people. You cannot force synchronicity. You cannot demand specific signs. You cannot manipulate existence into delivering your preferences. The moment you need synchronicity to prove something, you collapse the frequency. You shift from trust into control, and control opposes flow. Synchronicity emerges in the space of surrender. Not passive resignation, active surrender where you're doing your part, maintaining your frequency, taking inspired action, but remaining unattached to how manifestation unfolds. You plant seeds, you water them, then you trust the process to complete itself. That trust, that surrender is the most powerful frequency you can embody because it signals to reality, I know you support me, I'm safe, I'm ready. When existence senses that, when it recognizes you're not grasping, forcing, or guessing, it delivers in ways that exceed comprehension. Not because you manipulated it, but because you became a clear channel. And a clear channel is all existence requires to reorganize reality on your behalf. So, here's what I want you to do immediately. Recall the last synchronicity you experienced, the one you dismissed, the one you rationalized away, the one you considered too insignificant to matter. Return to it mentally. What was it attempting to communicate? What frequency were you embodying when it appeared? What would have unfolded if you'd followed that thread? Because I promise you it wasn't random, it was invitation to trust. To expand into a larger version of yourself, to collaborate with a reality that's more conscious, more responsive, more intelligent than conventional world, use acknowledge. The question isn't whether reality is listening. It always has been. The question is, are you? Now, here's something I need you to understand about this journey of learning synchronicities language. It's not linear, it's spiral. You'll have periods where synchronicities flood your awareness, where you feel absolutely connected to the field, where guidance feels constant and clear. Then you'll have periods where the signal seems to fade, where synchronicities become rare, where you wonder if you've lost the connection entirely. These quiet periods aren't punishment, they're integration. Reality isn't withdrawing. You're being invited to embody what you've learned at a deeper level, to trust without constant external validation, to maintain your frequency without needing immediate confirmation. These are the moments that forge genuine mastery, where you learn to hold your coherence, not because you're receiving constant reinforcement, but because you've internalized the truth of how reality operates. And here's what happens when you persist through these integration phases. When synchronicities return, and they always do, they come back stronger, clearer, more profound than before. You're being upgraded, trained to handle increasingly sophisticated levels of communication with the field. It's like moving from basic vocabulary to complex philosophical discussions in a new language. The quiet periods are necessary for this evolution. Before we move into integration, I want you to do something right now. Pause this video, take a deep breath, and comment below with these exact words. I am tuned into reality's frequency. Don't just type it casually. Feel it as you write it. Let it be a declaration, an energetic signature you're sending into the quantum field. Let it be your conscious interruption of the old pattern that says synchronicity isn't real. Because every time you acknowledge the language, every time you consciously engage with it, you strengthen the signal. You're telling reality, I'm listening, I'm present, I'm ready to receive. Do that right now. Comment those words. I am tuned into reality's frequency. Let that be your stake in the ground. So, let's integrate what we've covered. Synchronicity isn't coincidence. It's not luck. It's not imagination. It's a quantum feedback mechanism, a symbolic language, an ongoing dialogue between your consciousness and the field of infinite potential. Carl Jung discovered it. Quantum physics validated it. Your life has been demonstrating it continuously, whether you've been consciously aware or not. The numbers, the symbols, the impossible timing, the people who manifest exactly when needed, the closed doors that redirect you toward better paths. None of this is random. It's all signal, and the signal perpetually responds to your frequency. When you're coherent, when thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align, synchronicities flow effortlessly, undeniably in ways that leave you astonished. But during chaos, fear, and resistance, the signal drowns in noise, and you convince yourself existence isn't communicating. But it is always. You're simply not tuned in and tuning in. That's the practice, that's the discipline. That's the transformation from victim consciousness to creator consciousness. It means accepting radical responsibility for your frequency. Not what you claim to want, but what you're actually broadcasting through your nervous system, your belief structures, your habitual emotional patterns. It means honoring synchronicities even when they contradict logic. Even when they're uncomfortable, even when they're requiring you to evolve beyond your current identity. It means trusting reality enough to surrender outcomes, release control, shift from force into flow. When you accomplish this, when you become a clear channel, reality stops feeling like something happening to you. It transforms into something happening with you. Co-creation, partnership, collaboration with an intelligence so vast, so precise, so unconditionally loving that it will never cease guiding you home. Because that's synchronicity's true nature, not magic tricks, not manifestation shortcuts. It's existence reminding you constantly, perpetually, you are not separate. You are not isolated. You are woven into this. Every aspect of your life interconnects with the whole. When you remember that, truly remember, you stop feeling powerless. You stop waiting for permission. You stop seeking external validation. You become the frequency and reality responds. So here's my question. What's your next move? Because the synchronicity waiting for you, the one that's going to transform everything, it's already in motion. Reality is already orchestrating it, but it requires you to meet it halfway. It needs you to show up coherent, present, willing. If you commit to this practice, to this way of perceiving, to this relationship with reality, everything shifts. Not eventually. Now, next time you notice that number, don't dismiss it. Ask, what was I just thinking? What's this reflecting back to me? Next time you feel that pull, don't override it with logic. Trust it, follow it, observe where it leads. Next time reality mirrors something uncomfortable, don't blame the mirror, thank it, because it's revealing exactly what requires transformation. This is your initiation, your invitation, your awakening. And existence doesn't send awakenings to people who aren't ready. So if you're here, if you've remained present this entire time, If something within you is resonating, yes, that's not accidental either. That's synchronicity operating right now. Let me share something about the evolution of synchronistic awareness that most people never reach. There are levels to this stages of development in how you perceive and interact with reality's symbolic language. And understanding these stages helps you recognize where you are and where you're headed. The first stage is unconscious dismissal. This is where most people live their entire lives. They experience synchronicities constantly, but their rational mind immediately explains them away. Coincidence, chance, pattern recognition. Their worldview has no framework for meaningful connection between inner and outer reality, so they literally cannot see what's happening right in front of them. The synchronicities are there, the signals are being transmitted, but their receiver is tuned to a completely different frequency. The second stage is curious recognition. This is where you are. If you're watching this video, you've started noticing the patterns. The repeating numbers feel too consistent to ignore. The impossible timing happens too frequently to dismiss. You're beginning to suspect there's something more happening, some intelligence behind the apparent randomness. You're not fully convinced yet. There's still doubt, but the door has cracked open. You're seeking understanding, looking for frameworks that make sense of what you're experiencing. The third stage is active engagement. This is where you begin consciously working with synchronicity. You start your journal. You pay attention to your emotional state when signs appear. You begin making small experiments, asking reality for specific confirmations, and watching what happens. You're building a relationship with the field, learning its language, discovering your personal symbolic vocabulary. Synchronicities increase during this stage because you're finally paying attention. You're listening and reality responds to attention with more communication. The fourth stage is integrated fluency. This is where synchronicity becomes your primary navigation system. You don't just notice signs occasionally. You're in constant dialogue with reality. You feel the subtle pulls before anything manifests. You sense when you're in flow and when you're out of alignment before external feedback confirms it. You make decisions based on resonance rather than logic. You trust the guidance implicitly because you've seen it proven accurate hundreds of times. At this level, you're no longer questioning whether synchronicity is real. You're living inside it as your fundamental reality. But there's a fifth stage that few people know exists. I call it transparent co-creation. At this level, the distinction between you and the field begins to dissolve. You recognize that you're not receiving guidance from something external to you. You are the field expressing itself through this particular point of consciousness. The synchronicities aren't messages from the universe to you. They're reality reflecting its own intelligence back to itself through your awareness. At this stage, synchronicity becomes less about seeing signs and more about being the sign. You become a walking synchronicity for others. Your presence, your words, your timing become the meaningful coincidence that shifts someone else's reality. You're no longer just reading the language, you're speaking it, you're writing it, you're actively authoring reality through your coherence. This might sound abstract or esoteric, but it's the natural evolution of synchronistic awareness. And you don't have to force your way through these stages. They unfold organically as you commit to the practice, as you maintain your frequency, as you trust the process. Each stage prepares you for the next. Each stage brings its own gifts, its own challenges, its own revelations. Now, let me address something that stops many people at stage 3. The shadow side of synchronicity, the uncomfortable truth that most spiritual teachers avoid because it doesn't fit the manifestation positive vibes narrative. But if you're serious about mastering this language, you need to understand the full spectrum. Synchronicity doesn't just show up to validate you. It shows up to evolve you, and evolution isn't always comfortable. Sometimes synchronicity appears as warning signs, as repeating obstacles that force you to change direction, as relationships that fall apart to redirect you toward your actual path. As doors that slam shut so you'll turn around and notice the door that's been open behind you the whole time. I've experienced this personally. There was a period in my life where I kept experiencing the same type of delay. Every plan I made would be interrupted, flights cancelled, meetings rescheduled, technology failing at critical moments. My first response was frustration. Why is the universe blocking me? But when I looked deeper, when I got honest about what frequency I was broadcasting, I realized I was forcing. I was trying to make things happen through willpower and control rather than flowing with aligned action. The delays weren't punishment, they were protection. Reality was preventing me from manifesting outcomes that came from misaligned frequency. The delays were giving me time to recalibrate, to get coherent, to shift my approach. Once I stopped resisting and started listening to what the pattern was teaching me, everything changed. The delays stopped. But more importantly, what I started creating came from a completely different place. From alignment rather than force, from trust rather than control, from coherence rather than desperation, the synchronistic blocks were some of the most valuable guidance I've ever received. But I had to be willing to receive the uncomfortable messages, not just the validating ones. This is what I mean by the shadow side. Synchronicity will sometimes dismantle your life. It will remove people, opportunities, identities, anything that's built on false frequency. And in those moments, it feels like everything is falling apart. It feels like you're being punished or abandoned or tested. But what's actually happening is reality is clearing space. It's removing what's incompatible with your evolution so you can align with what's actually true for you. The challenge is having the awareness and courage to recognize these dismantling synchronicities as guidance rather than catastrophe. To trust that what's falling away needed to fall away. To believe that what's coming next will be more aligned even when you can't see it yet. This requires a level of surrender that most people aren't willing to access. They want synchronicity to give them what they want when they want it. But mature synchronistic awareness understands that sometimes the greatest gift is being denied what you thought you wanted so you can receive what you actually need. Let me give you another practical tool for this journey. Beyond the journal, beyond elevating your frequency, beyond recognizing mirrors, this is about learning to distinguish between 3 different types of synchronistic signals, because not all synchronicities mean the same thing, and misinterpreting the signal can lead to confusion and misaligned action. The first type is confirmation synchronicity. This is reality affirming that you're on the right path. You're thinking about making a change, and suddenly you see 3 different signs pointing in that direction. Someone mentions exactly what you've been contemplating. A book falls off a shelf open to a page that speaks directly to your question. You hear a song with lyrics that mirror your exact situation. These synchronicities feel expansive, aligned, resonant. They create a sense of yes, keep going in your body. These are green lights, trust them, move forward with confidence. The second type is course correction synchronicity. These are trickier because they often don't feel good. You're pursuing something and you keep hitting obstacles. Resources don't materialize. People cancel. Technology fails. Your body gets sick, forcing you to pause. Your first instinct might be to push harder, to interpret this as resistance you need to overcome. But often these patterns are reality saying wrong direction. Not wrong because you're bad or failing, but wrong because it's out of alignment with your highest path. These synchronicities feel contracting, frustrating, like you're swimming upstream. They're invitations to stop, reassess, and potentially redirect. These are yellow lights, caution signs, pause, get still, ask, what's this trying to show me? The third type is breakthrough synchronicity. These are the most intense and least understood. They appear during moments of profound transformation when you're on the edge of a major shift in consciousness. They often involve impossible timing, multiple synchronicities converging at once, reality seeming to bend around you in dramatic ways. Someone from your past reappears with exactly what you need to hear. An opportunity manifests that you couldn't have planned or predicted. A series of events align in ways that feel orchestrated by invisible intelligence. These synchronicities feel electric, destabilizing in the best way, like reality is confirming you're in a pivotal moment. They often appear right before or right after major breakthroughs, initiations, or quantum leaps in your evolution. These are pivotal moments. Pay complete attention. Everything is about to change. Learning to recognize which type of synchronicity you're experiencing changes everything because each type requires a different response. Confirmation, synchronicities want you to trust and move forward. Course correction, synchronicities want you to pause and redirect. Breakthrough, synchronicities want you to stay present and surrender to what's unfolding. Misread the signal and you'll either force your way forward when you should stop or hesitate, when you should leap or miss the significance of a pivotal moment entirely. This discernment develops with practice, with time, with willingness to be wrong, to learn, to refine your understanding. But the more you work with these distinctions, the more sophisticated your synchronistic literacy becomes. You stop just noticing signs and start understanding the specific messages encoded in each one. And here's something I want you to consider. Watch this video again tomorrow morning before your day begins. Let these concepts saturate your awareness at the start of your day when your consciousness is most receptive. You'll notice different layers each time, deeper meanings emerging as your understanding evolves. Or share this with someone who keeps saying they feel stuck, who's convinced nothing ever works out for them. Because when you share this understanding, you're not just helping them, you're strengthening your own frequency by becoming a transmitter of coherence yourself, creating synchronistic ripples that return to you amplified. Now, if you've stayed with me this far, if what I'm sharing is landing in your awareness as truth, then I have an invitation for you. Not just to subscribe to this channel, though I do invite that, but to subscribe to something deeper, to subscribe to this frequency, to this way of seeing reality, to this community of people who are remembering how to read existence's language. Because here's what happens when enough people tune into synchronistic awareness. When enough people start broadcasting coherent frequencies. When enough people stop living unconsciously and start co-creating consciously, reality itself shifts. The collective field becomes more coherent. Synchronicities become more accessible to everyone. The veil between unconscious and conscious creation becomes thinner. We're not just changing our individual realities. We're changing the shared reality we all exist within. This is bigger than personal manifestation. This is about collective awakening, about humanity remembering its true nature as conscious co-creators rather than unconscious victims. About evolving beyond survival consciousness into creative consciousness. And it starts with individuals like you making the choice to tune in, to listen, to trust, to embody what you're learning. So yes, subscribe to this channel, but more importantly, subscribe to the practice, commit to the journal, commit to elevating your frequency, commit to seeing relationships as mirrors, commit to making aligned decisions, even when they don't make logical sense. Commit to releasing outcomes and trusting the field. Make this a daily discipline, not a casual interest, because that's what creates transformation, not occasional attention, but consistent commitment. And here's what I want you to do right now before you leave this space. Drop one word in the comments below. Just one word that captures the energy, the intention, the transformation you're choosing to embody. Not what you hope to achieve, not what you wish would happen, but the frequency you're committing to become. Maybe it's trust, maybe it's flow, maybe it's coherence, maybe it's surrender. Whatever word rises from your deepest knowing, share it. Let it be your energetic signature to the quantum field. Let it be your declaration of intent. Let it be your synchronicity for someone else who needs to see that exact word today, because that's how this works. Your comment, your word, your energy becomes part of the field. It ripples out. It touches others. It creates resonance. Someone scrolling through these comments will see your word and something will shift inside them. You become the synchronicity. You become the message. You become the mirror. Someone else needs to see themselves differently. This is the power of conscious community. When we gather in shared frequency, when we collectively hold intention, when we support each other's evolution, We amplify the signal exponentially. We create a coherence field that makes it easier for everyone to tune in. We remind each other that we're not alone in this, that others are seeing what we're seeing, experiencing what we're experiencing, awakening to what we're awakening to. So subscribe not to consume content, but to stay connected to this frequency, to this movement, to this collective remembering. Because the more of us who embody this truth, the more reality reflects that truth back. The more people who live synchronistically, the more synchronicity becomes normal, accessible, undeniable. We're not just changing our individual lives. We're changing the blueprint of what's possible for humanity. Before you go, I need to tell you something I haven't mentioned yet. There's a darker side to synchronicity, a shadow aspect that most teachers won't touch. The synchronicities that feel like warnings, the patterns that repeat until you break, the way the field sometimes has to dismantle your life to set you free, not to punish you, but to liberate you from what's no longer true. So, if you're ready to go even deeper, if you want the full picture, not just the pretty parts, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me what's the most unexplainable synchronicity you've ever experienced, because I read every single one. And your story. It might be the synchronicity someone else needs to hear. It might be the confirmation they've been waiting for. It might be the spark that ignites their awakening. The conversation is just beginning. An existence is listening to every word, to every intention, to every frequency you broadcast. The question isn't whether reality will respond. It will, it always does. The question is, what are you broadcasting? What frequency are you holding? What reality are you collapsing into existence through the clarity of your consciousness? This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your synchronicity. What you do with it determines everything that unfolds next. Trust the pull, follow the thread, become the frequency, and watch as reality reorganizes itself around your coherence in ways that will leave you forever changed. The universe is speaking. Are you listening? And if you're recognizing that you've been losing interest in the old patterns, the old frequencies, the old identity that no longer fits, that's not depression or disconnection. That's a signal. I've explored this specific shift in depth. Why losing interest in everything you once cared about is actually your consciousness preparing for quantum transformation. Understanding this will help you navigate what's happening right now with clarity rather than confusion, recognizing it as the sacred dismantling it truly is.